Give us one more just because we haven't heard it in a while.
Here we go. And here we go for another edition of Jofo in the Ring. And yes, my name is Frank Jofo, and we have a special guest, James Romero from the Wrestling Shoot Interviews. What's going on, James?
I'm wonderful. Well, I've already said that my voice is absolutely shot. I've had a cold for about a month, and like everything I catch every disease, and then I really wring out every last drop of misery I can from it. So from a basic cold, this has now turned into gangrene of the lungs. So if I sound, slightly different to on my YouTube show, should anyone watch that? That's why.
Well,
how you doing, buddy? I'm very sorry I was being rude. And how are you?
Well, very good, very good. I know that there's a lot of people that admire your work, especially myself and our followers. First things first, the UK, how's it going there with the COVID and the restrictions and everything over there?
Omicron, however you pronounce it, is taking over like wildfire. It's the hottest thing right now. Restrictions-wise, we didn't have any for a good few months. Now you've got to wear masks again in like supermarkets and public transport. And that's more or less it. I think, actually, excuse me, we're going to start doing the passes again, the COVID pass.
Yes.
The QR code sort of thing, which I don't know why they weren't brought in earlier. I don't know why we were told to stop wearing masks in supermarkets or just like basic places where you should do. But what I thought was always stupid was when restaurants and pubs opened, or bars, you had to wear your mask when you walked in. And then you walk 10 feet to your table and then had to take them off. That seemed like a complete waste of time.
It's the same thing with us over here, because I have a few friends that own a couple of bars. And once you walk in, you see these people taking off the mask. So it's like, well, why are we just, it's a little bit weird. But like I said, it's to protect everybody, I guess, and to help the economy grow, I guess, because if nothing's open, it's bad news for everybody. But hopefully, I know us in Canada, we had one of the strictest restrictions. We had curfews and quarantines, and 9 p.m. everyone had to be inside, and it was just like warfare over here. But it's easing down, but everyone's getting a little bit more nervous now with the Omicron. But hopefully Christmas, everything will be fine for everybody. But it's glad to see.
Did you get the Pfizer? Did you get the Pfizer jab?
I got the Pfizer myself. I got the double dose because I work on a steamship, so we're technically we have to be vaccinated to be working on the ship and everything. So that's one of the reasons why. But I do it more for my family because I don't want to hear my mother telling me, "You better go get the vaccine. You better go get the vaccine." So let me go get the vaccine and clear my head. You know what I mean? But
I've got asthma, so I've got every disease. So that's why I got it for me. Because I just thought, if I can really wring out a disease as like with this cold, then COVID's going to finish me off for good. So whereabouts in Canada are you? In fact,
we're from Montreal. We are based in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. We're big wrestling fans here. We have the IWS that as our big promotion here in Montreal. I know that you've interviewed many great Canadians, such as PCO and Jacques Rougeau, and Jacques Rougeau and PCO have been on our show as well. Very good friends of ours, and very good friends of one of our co-hosts, who is a 15-year veteran in the Canadian wrestling scene, Jeremy Prophet. I know that he was on the PCO Justice with PCO, and very, very good friends. He got trained by Jacques Rougeau, actually. Right. Yeah. And
just like Kevin Steen.
Just like Kevin Steen. And he's big fan of yours as well. And you told me he couldn't be here today, but he told me, he goes, if you ever have a spot for him to get interviewed, he'd love to be on your show. So,
oh, dude, if he's a very famous wrestler, maybe.
Yeah.
I'll take it. I'll take anyone to a point. If I've heard of him, I'll take him.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'll tell you what, no, all these interviews recently, because I'm obviously trying, well, let's say obviously, but I'm trying to load up on interviews. Yeah. So I don't have to work over Christmas. So it's been every single day I've been doing this in this room, boiling my, we can swear on this.
Of course. Like I said, it's just our fucking opinion. Jofo, that's what it's all about over here. On
boiling my fucking tits off in this room. It's south facing, so I get the sun right in there all day. And then it's freezing cold the rest of the time. And oh my God. Yeah, I'm not cut out for this, but somehow this was just meant to be a bit of a pastime, right?
Of course. And telling all the fans out there that follow you and follow us as well. how did your channel come about? Because my goal is to get to 1,000 like everybody else, 1,000 subscribers, but we've all started at zero. I know you started at zero as well. How did it get to this point where you're going unbelievably great on YouTube right now?
Well, I'll give the very short answer with as few details as possible. That channel, when I started my channel, didn't have 0 subscribers. I posted some other stuff on it first.
Okay.
And then that built up some subscribers. And then I decided, well, you know what? I'm really sick of having no pride in myself and never creating any of my own stuff. In fact, actually, that's why I wrote a book. It's not that one that you can see. It's the other one, the Owen Hart one.
The Owen Hart.
Yeah, the Owen Hart book anyway. Yeah, Amazon. And basically, I just thought it was something I always wanted to do, is write a book. And then I wrote the book. It took me nearly a year. It was a nightmare, absolute nightmare, really stressed me out. And so then I thought, well, I'll write a second one then.
Of course.
So I wrote a second one. And then anyway, a couple of months after that, so that the Rock one came out in November 2020. A couple of months afterwards, I thought, you know what? I'm listening to a lot of podcasts here and there. I didn't have too much to do. And then I thought, I can do better than some of these people. And I'll tell you exactly who it was that I thought I could do better than. Terry Runnels.
Okay.
I heard her podcast and I thought, this is the worst podcast I've ever heard in my life.
Really?
I mean, the audio was shocking. I mean, it just meandered. You know, I like a good structure in an audio podcast, you know.
Of course.
So anyway, just one day I just thought, you know what, I'm going to try it myself. And then I did, and I had a channel that was doing nothing at all. And then so it just went from there, really. My first ever interview was Lanny Poffo.
Oh wow.
And I tell you all right, the anxiety that I get, like I'm not as anxious as I used to be, but I used to be a nervous, anxious person, really. The first few months I was doing this and getting interviews, I remember one that was really stressing me. Anything where they don't turn up on time,
yes,
is where I start going, you know, rocking back and forth,
start
and really
getting nervous,
stressed.
and
Start overthinking it and thinking it. It's like a couple of other times where I've just like gone through an interview, and Yosemite Sam in the excuse me, is where he get more red and more red. Like when he got angry, he'd go, and I could just feel that rush of blood, of nerves and stress and everything else that comes over me. But where was I going with the question? What did you ask?
the way that your YouTube channel came about.
Oh, right. Well, I've told you the most of it, really. It was just there was a YouTube channel that was lying dormant with a lot of subscribers. And I thought, well, I don't want to use anybody else's stuff. I'm going to do my own stuff, take some pride in it. And also, here's the other thing. I thought it'd be a great way to promote the books. And that's actually why I started it, or started doing it for myself, because it just seemed like a, symbiotic, sort of a co-promotional thing that I could advertise myself on myself and never have to pay. And it did actually work. So the book sales went up when the YouTube views go up, the book sales go up, not including Christmas.
Okay. And writing 2 books. I know you said your first book was the Owen Hart one. Obviously, must be a big Owen Hart fan.
No, I wasn't.
Oh no.
That's the thing. I picked right. Okay, so I decided on Owen Hart because Martha Hart wrote a very good book on Owen. In one sense, in another sense, it wasn't, because it was full of her own. It was full of conjecture on her own part that Owen really hated wrestling, and if you speak to anybody else, he didn't. He didn't like traveling. He may not have liked some of the people he was working with, but as far as bell to bell goes, he loved it. As far as I can tell, he loved wrestling.
Of course.
And then there was a U-shoot. In kayfabe commentaries used to do the DVDs. There's a U-shoot with Sean Waltman, and Sean said, there should really be a book written just on ribs that Owen Hart's done. And no one wrote it in the intervening nearly 10 years, like maybe 8 years since he said it. So I made a list of, book subjects. One was The Rock. One was The Ultimate Warrior. I didn't do The Ultimate Warrior because I thought it would have been a nightmare to get around the copyright of the face paint logo, because he famously sued WWF for putting his face paint logo that he trademarked on the NAPTI convention in 1996, which was like a national television convention where they attract sponsors and stuff. So excuse me. So long story, very long story, very short is just take out most of the words I said, and that's the story, I suppose.
and then and then as much as that happened, you wrote another book after with the Rock, the People's Champ.
Yeah, well, I was going for the commercial market then.
Okay,
thought,
did you get any recognition from the Rock after that book, or was just
no, I actually
something you wanted to do for yourself?
No, I thought I'd make some good money out of it.
Okay,
It's like, you know what? I've sold, for somebody who's not an author. It's like before that, I'd never written anything apart from the Owen Hart book, but I'd never written anything. And I just said, in my own infinite ego, I can do anything. And then, but I did. And, you know, it's my opinion. I'd love to go back and edit them both down again, and, you know, with a year or two of hindsight. But, you know, I think that for somebody who doesn't write, I think they're pretty darn good.
Is that like this? Let's say, like, if anyone wanted to write a book, is it that easy to write a book, or is it just what's the process behind that?
Right, the process behind it, as far as, because this is all me, trial and error.
It's your opinion in the book, right?
Obviously. This is oh, you mean the subject in the book?
Yes, the subjects of the book.
Very, very little of my opinion, I think.
Okay.
Occasionally one bit will sneak in. With the Rock one, I'll give you an example. Now I'll go back to remind me about like the process of it. It's a very short answer. Is something I do put in is when, and is a subtle FU to dirt sheet writers, where they're saying The Rock versus Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 18 was only a 2-star or a 3-star match, and it's like it was a 5-star match. Do you see the people not jumping up and down, like screaming, and it was amazing? That's 5-star to me. And to answer the previous question, the process of writing for me it was very difficult. Indeed, it was trial and error. But really, the true battle is you've got an empty on your Microsoft Word or whatever document you're using, or typewriter. It's to make that blank piece of paper into at least something. It can be anything. It could be a title. That's the hardest thing, is to write the first sentence. And then the first sentence comes, then the next 5 come quite easily. But the thing that I really struggled, especially in the first one, is, I had no idea how to really structure a sentence or a paragraph or a story well. And the first one is a lot of short stories for the most part. I'm sorry. I'll stop burping. And so it gave me, it was just trial and error. And I went and rewrote. The first thing I wrote was something about Razor Ramon. It was some rib where maybe he was in a gym or whatever it was. I rewrote that at least 30 times throughout the course of like 9 months, because I thought 15 times in it, that's as good as it's going to get. Okay. And then I'd written another 100 stories, or I'm exaggerating slightly, but I've written another 50 stories, and they progressively get better and they flow better. And then you go back to the first one you do and think, this is rubbish. And then you do it again. So I think really, if you're ever going to undertake something like that, one, you've got to have a big interest in what you're doing, or else you just never do it. Two, you have to have quite a lot of self-discipline, which I didn't have, but you just learn to have it. And maybe set yourself a goal. My goal was, because I was really slow, is 1,500 words a day, maybe 2,000. Just little things like that, they're achievable. And then before you know it, you'll have got something of substance. And then set yourself a time to finish, and then just aim for it, just do it. I mean, it's simple as that.
Going back to what you were saying about the Hogan and the Rock, I just rewatched No Way Out 2003 that was in Montreal.
No way near as good, was it?
The second one, it wasn't as good, and then everyone criticizes that first one because I guess they thought that Hulk Hogan or the Rock, because obviously the Rock was the good guy and Hogan was the bad guy, but everybody knows in Canada it's Bizarro World over here, especially in Montreal, and I know that was in Toronto. I was at the Raw the day after at WrestleMania, but it's Bizarro World here in Montreal. A lot of people say it's the same way in the UK. Do you agree with that?
To a point, yeah. I actually think I do. It depends. Do you know what? I'll give you an example, and this will completely contradict what I've just said. Is 1993, Jim Duggan is in the main event, so you know that the roster is thin. And I love Jim Duggan, but I mean. It was like Jim Duggan versus Lex Luger. And he clapped his hands and stomped his feet. And the UK audience chanted USA. I was like, man, we are like the nicest, like most accommodating audience of all time. But I don't think it's as bad as Canada. But I think that we've got the best chance ever. Yes. Because, you call it soccer, football, everywhere else.
Yes.
Is, God, some of the chants are just peak comedy, amazing, funny. It's like the last one, a few years ago when it was the last Raw I ever watched, and it was the one where John Cena and Mark. It was the day after WrestleMania, and the audience got like the Slammy or whatever for the best audience of the year.
Yeah,
and it was all that was the last one I ever watched. I know CM Punk or something was on the last Raw I ever watched, and I think that may have been.
Well, it's like I what I'm trying to say is that because I know that every time, for some reason, a lot of people tell me like, why don't they come to Montreal a lot more? Because I think that we screw up the storylines to a point where they have to shuffle things around. And even on other Monday Night Raws, besides the one at the WrestleMania, I know that Roman Reigns, they were trying to make him good, and then they had bad guys, which were Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn at the time, come in, and you know that the fans are going to go crazy for them. It's Montreal. It's only a gimme. And the UK, I find it's the same thing too. When I watched NXT a couple of years ago, when NXT was the hot thing, UK always ate NXT up. It's just like, have you ever been besides that, like live in at a pay-per-view or a Monday Night Raw?
I have been to 3 Monday Night Raws: 2004 in Manchester, 2005 in Sheffield, 2006 in Manchester again, and that's it. I'll tell you what, I went to one show. The first one I ever went to, or maybe second, and it was meant to be headlined by Yokozuna, and he died the day before. So there were two stars who were meant to be on: Yokozuna, who died, and Greg Valentine, who just wasn't there.
Okay.
So it was headlined by the Legend of Doom, which was like some old 60-year-old fucker in like, saggy old boobies and like the whole fucking Hawk knockoff paint, and he was in the main event. And I remember seeing like a rubber kendo stick. And that's about it.
As a kid, I'm 38 years old. I grew up on Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, Macho Man. So for me, like I hate when people criticize that match with Hogan and The Rock, because they're like, oh, maybe it wasn't supposed to happen that way, that Hulk Hogan was gonna Hulk up, come back as the American, the red and yellow. Do you think that it was meant to go that way, or do you think that that was the plan?
I think it was obvious. Hulk Hogan, the way he says it, you know,
especially
what I mean?
In Toronto, right? Like,
oh God, yeah, WrestleMania 6 as well. Yeah. That was in Toronto, wasn't it?
Exactly.
And man, I always find it so weird that Hulk Hogan's even more beloved in Canada than in America. The American hero is more beloved in Canada.
Yeah.
But you look back in like the mid 80s, right? 85, and you see that the WWF was in Toronto, like just Toronto on its own, over 20 times in 1 year. It's like they were just rinsing the market. So they've got just as much, the people of Toronto, the people of Canada have got just as much connection with Hulk Hogan than anyone else, because he was there so often. They were probably there more than they were in Chicago.
Yeah.
And they were in Chicago every month or every 3 weeks or something crazy. But when people say that Hulk Hogan's not a good worker, it's like he's clearly a great worker.
Of course, and, like him or not, it's
like people with like I don't know, people who spend too much time in the internet going, oh yes, I know, the work rate was wrong, or like people like people who use words like work rate and then like actually grade the matches like 4 3/4 stars and stuff like that. Shut up. Did you enjoy it?
I used to be a fan of Brian Zane when he used to do those reviews and everything. And like I said, I watched the No Way Out, and I wanted to see his opinion on that match, the No Way Out 2003. And he gave it, I think it was a 1.5 star out of 4, or a half star, I think, the Rock and Hogan. I understand that match, but then I think he gave it 1 star at the WrestleMania in Toronto, which is a little bit weird. I just don't get it. Maybe there has to be something else behind that, but
do you know what it is? I think it's just like people who are too obsessed with wrestling,
and
they've got a very narrow review of what wrestling should be. I've got a very narrow review of what wrestling should be, but what I think wrestling should be is successful and drawing money. And you draw, and it's like I think there's far too much emphasis on how good the match was. How good the match was is almost irrelevant. So I mean, in my opinion, there's far too much wrestling, and there's far too much interaction between major stars. So and people always say, oh, the kids these days, or we're pretty much similar age, is people like us, they'll lump us in with the millennials, is that we've got no attention span. and we demand everything immediately, which is horseshit. Because, I mean, look at the most famous TV shows of the last 15 years or 20 years, and they were all slow burners. Breaking Bad, Sons of Anarchy,
Yes.
the
great
one in Iceland, you know what I mean? The Sopranos. They've all got slow burns, and it's all character-driven, and it all builds up to major individual moments, but it doesn't have 20 of them every single week or every single episode, you know? So it's a cop-out from people saying that wrestling fans won't sit there and wait for the slow build. It's like, I think, let's say Raw. Well, 3 hours is too much. Let's say SmackDown.
That's hands down for sure. I'm agree with that. I'll agree with that.
So let's say 2 hours is, or maybe even 90 minutes is the ideal time for a major wrestling show.
Well, back in the day, when we grew up, it was 2 hours, right?
Raw and Nitro was 1 hour.
Yeah. Oh, it was.
Yeah.
Was it 1 hour? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Nitro was 1 hour until I think midnight 96 or very early 97. I might be mistaken there. Raw was February or March 97. They both went to 2 hours to obviously fight each other. But WCW initiated the 2 hour thing first. They had a lot of 2 hour specials, and then they made the leap to anyway. Blah, blah, blah. If it's 2 hours, at least half of it should be 1 star versus 1 bum, 1 jobber, 1 enhancement talent. And it can be the fabled jobber to the stars sort of thing, you know, where you know who's going to win, and you're going to see the stars finisher. You're going to see all the good stuff. You are going to get what that person is all about in that one match. You don't need to have star versus star. Then there's some screwy finish where there's a count out and DQ, or as they say 50-50 booking, where let's say one person wins via nefarious means, then the other guy gets up and then beats the winner down, and then nobody gets over because one guy won but got his ass kicked, and the other guy was a loser to begin with.
And then everyone calls it they got buried because they lost, right?
That's another thing, isn't it? I mean, back in the day, they used to know what they were doing. Exactly. I tell you, Sting, did he win against Ric Flair? No, he didn't. I mean, that was actually a bit of a screwy finish because it was a judge thing at the first Clash of the Champions. Bad example, but he didn't win. Did he get over? Yes, of course he did. Was he made a star overnight? Yes, of course he was. Did he have the title? No, he didn't. And then they obviously left it too long to put the title. No, did he? Yeah, I think he injured his leg actually.
I think he was injured for something happened there. I remember that. Yeah, he was off TV for a bit.
That was something like JTEX Corporation or something. Like Terry Funk was in it, and he jumped off like a cage or something and messed his leg up, I think. And then it's one of those things, like one of those happenstance things where it's the perfect time, and then just the absolute worst thing could happen, and then he has to be out for 9 months, and then all the momentum's lost, and you have to start over again.
It's speaking about jobbers, you were saying jobbers. I'm a big. Everyone always. I had a wrestling federation when I was a kid in high school. We did.
Didn't we all? I did.
Well, yeah, it was called the LWF, the LaSalle Wrestling Federation. We were in high school. We were all wrestling fans. I graduated in the year 2000, so it was Attitude Era right there. We were all animals. We all loved wrestling, and all of us and all the wrestlers that I had were about maybe 15, 20 guys that were all good friends of mine in my graduating class. They all took, I wanted to be Stone Cold. I wanted to be Undertaker. Everyone's like, they're like, Frank, who did you pick? I picked, and everyone still can't believe this to this day, the Brooklyn Brawler. I was a guy that I wasn't for that flashy guy. And even though Brooklyn Brawler, we all know that he was probably the #1 jobber in WWE, maybe close to Barry Horowitz, maybe, but I admired what he did in the ring, and I understood the psychology that he was putting all these guys over, even though he was losing every match, and everyone did understand that. I know you've had Brooklyn Brawler on the show. How was he? How did you think about him?
I stared up his nose for about an hour and a half because of the weird angle he was doing. But no, he was dead nice. He kept explaining like very basic terms like heat and stuff. But he was a sweetheart. Pretty much everybody I've spoke to has been like put me at ease like almost immediately. Apart from like a couple who were just difficult. And
you know what? I'd like to take you off there. A lot of people would say that I've had Sabu too. It was okay with me. What I saw with your interview with Sabu, it was fine to me. But a lot of people, I've had Chris Van Vliet on, and he said he was the worst guest he's ever had ever. So I don't know. Maybe just didn't connect with him, or I don't know the story with that. But to me, it was okay. For me, watching your interview with him, it seemed
that
like
was my best
okay,
performance. That was my best performance, right? Right. So I was just like because I've got like a massive, like I'll give an example. I've got a script here somewhere. Let's say this is the latest Don Morocco one. I've got pages and pages of script for every single person. So I won't sit and I won't like sit and chat like we're having a freewheeling chat and you're just throwing whatever at me.
Yeah,
which is better in a sense for a long form interview.
Of course.
But what I do is I do all the clips. So I will ask, let's say, 2 or 3 questions that can all be compartmentalized into one subject. So Sabu was on the Sandman. Point being is that that was the interview that I could feel myself getting redder and redder throughout because I was so stressed. And he was giving me the one-word answer and everything. And then anyway, the point is that I was rattling off questions like nothing. And do you know what? I made him laugh quite a few times, which is surprising. So I was like, okay, well, it can't be too bad. And then afterwards, I was like, oh, that was awful. That was the worst experience. And then the guy after his handler said, I've never seen Sabu have a good time on an interview, but he really enjoyed that. I was like, did he? It's like, okay, then, but he's just a quiet dude. I don't begrudge him for that. He is an introvert, and I am an introvert as well. So he's on a more extreme scale than mine. But the only other one that was difficult was Carlito, and maybe one or two others that are just. Do you know what's funny is right? It's because here's something else that people won't realize unless you do this, you do the StreamYard thing, the Zoom thing. They're all much of a muchness. There's a half-second delay. So if I say half-second delay, and then you'll hear it.
Yeah.
Which is always a bit weird when to sort of jump in and, ask a new question or you wait for them.
Mm-hmm.
That's a skill that I've still not mastered at all, especially with Don Morocco. I haven't mastered it at all because he will just be quiet for 2 seconds. And then I'll go, okay. So it sounds like we've not got a rapport going on, but I don't think people also appreciate that there's a slight time delay. What did you ask again? I'm going so far off field here. Was it Sabu?
What's the process of? I know that you've had some great wrestlers on your show, Hall of Famers as well. Do your fans suggest your guest, or do you go out and get them yourself?
I always get them myself. Do you know, I've actually had about half a dozen people write to me and ask to be on, which is so flattering.
It's amazing.
And it's really flattering. I'd say asked to be on, or at least written to me and said, I really enjoyed this interview. And then I've always said, hey, well, if you enjoyed it, how about you come on one day? And, they've pretty much all said, yeah, which is great. I mean, but the hardest thing for me is getting guests because I've got no patience. I've got no persistence. And, eventually if this thing succeeds to the point I can hire somebody to sort of help me out, that's what they're going to be doing is maybe doing some post-production editing or whatever, but also getting the guests and writing the questions because every single time I don't let's say you have a guest, so I'll interview you then. Let's say you have a guest. How much preparation do you have before you have them on? Do you have a script? Do you just think
I have a script about maybe let's say about 24 hours, 48 hours before. I'll sit down and tell myself, okay, let me give myself a couple of hours to look into them. Especially like for Sabu, I was already sometimes it's different when I really don't know the wrestler that well. But like a Brooklyn Brawler, I've had on the show, Sabu as well. So I was fans of theirs already. So I kind of had something I always wanted to talk to them about. But other than that, I do a lot of independent wrestlers as well. From Canada and from the US, who I follow on social media, but it's not like I'm watching them on a weekly basis on TV, or I've watched them before on pay-per-views and stuff. So I have to do a little bit more research. But it's for me, it's the nostalgic thing to do is when I interview somebody like a Sabu or Brooklyn Brawler, even a Jacques Rougeau, it's like, wow, it's like I watched these guys on TV when I was a kid, and now I'm interviewing them on my podcast. And then the other side of it with the independent wrestlers is I try to help these independent wrestlers grow, and maybe one day maybe they can make it on AEW or WWE or New Japan or Impact, so I'm trying to help as much as I can, but hopefully one day I'll get to that stage where the subscribers grow, because I'm pretty sure that it gets to that stagnant point where it's like I'm working so hard but nothing's happening. But I'm just gonna keep on going and see where it goes. So
I had that maybe like May or June. I had a big spike in numbers, and it was when The Godfather was on.
yes,
And they just dipped straight down again. Then I had a good run for about a month, which is Ricky Morton and Dr. Tom. I had a week, 1 week Ricky, 1 week Tom, 1 week Ricky, 1 week Tom, and it was a great month. And then it just like goes straight down again, and I don't know why. It is really frustrating. But at the moment, I mean, views are just like the best you've ever been. I don't know if it's partly because of Christmas, or maybe it was just one interview that people liked, and then who knows? Who knows? I genuinely don't know. But I mean, like, there's a reason why people who do YouTube full time, there's a much higher rate of diagnosed depression in people who do YouTube things because it's so uncertain. And you know, it's not like punching in, punching out. You know, you get a 9 to 5 job and you get an hourly wage. It is very stressful. Thankfully, at the moment, things are going well, and hopefully, just all you can do is just build onto it.
of course.
But yeah, it's all I do is complain. I know it's like because like in my other job, I do property development, so I build I've got a house I'm meant to be putting a kitchen in, and I'm not doing it because I'm so inundated with this stuff, and now this is now my full-time job, and now my old full-time job is now becoming my part-time job, and it's weird, but yeah, it's just like it's just like when we're done, at least one weekly doing the WSI thing, which I find weird saying my own YouTube channel name because I never refer to it as that. I just say the YouTube channel. And then I'm hoping to pick up a third podcast as well, but I'm not saying who with because nothing is set in stone whatsoever. Just a pretty interested. I'm pretty interested, but nothing's for certain.
Is there somebody out there that you haven't interviewed yet that would
Hulk
be
Hogan, The Rock, Vince McMahon, Steve Austin? Yeah, loads.
I thought you were going to say Jim Cornette because I don't know.
Love Jim Cornette. Love him. Love Jim Cornette. I've known. I've known Jim a few years.
Okay,
we've got each other's contact information. I tried to get him on. He did not reply. So
okay,
which is a big shame because Jim is of the realistic like propositions. Jim is tops.
Is the man?
Tops.
Yeah.
And I'll give you a couple more that I'd really love to interview, but I've never reached out to WWE. Because I was waiting to hopefully get more views and you know, if you want to be in that position, you've got to look, you know, big time to a point, exactly. I suppose. And William Regal, he's the one I really want to talk to because he's got a great. I imagine you're the same as me. I don't know much about British wrestling, but it's a rich history, and Regal knows it. He knows it inside and out. He was with. Have you ever heard of Big Daddy? He was the biggest star here.
No, I never heard.
Looked like a sack of shit. But anyway, would you believe he was the brother of the promoter? Hang on, Big Daddy, but not the Adam Sandler film. There we go, Shirley Crabtree. His actual name was Shirley, which in Oop North, where I'm from, actually is like Leslie. You know, it's like it could be either a boys' game or a girls' game. So that's the camera.
Oh,
that is Big Daddy.
Wow,
an old fucker, about 6 foot. He'd turn up in a glittery top hat and a cape, and he was the only one with theme music. And I can't remember what it was. Was it like "We shall not be moved"? It was something like that. And then he'd beat them with like a belly bump, go like with a big fat gun, go beat them, sort of flop on top of them, get the pin, and then he'd get up after 2 minutes because there was like practically no wrestling at all, and just chant "Easy, easy, easy." And that was it. And he was a star, right? So as big as Hulk Hogan was in America, Big Daddy was a bigger star here.
Wow.
1/3 of the country tuned in for the big, big face-off with his adversary, Giant Haystacks, who was Loch Ness in WCW, if you remember that name from about 95.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, by 95, he was fucked. He couldn't move. But yeah, it's like wrestling was a huge deal here. So, like, let's say the population was like 55, 60 million in the early 80s. Wrestling will get 8 million viewers easily every week.
You don't see those numbers here in the US and Canada. They don't really talk about that. And I know the viewership in UK is very strong there. I don't know why they haven't gone back.
No, it isn't.
It isn't.
No, the wrestling.
Oh,
no. I'll tell you about this then. So WWE. Have you heard of Sky Sports?
Yes.
Carried WWE for 29 years or something, and then before that, Sky carried WWE as well. But it's now moved on to BT Sport, which is if there's ESPN, let's say that's the Fox Sports. It's like the second.
Okay.
It's like the sort of second tier, but it's got a lot of good sports on. I read not too long ago that viewership for a Raw first run was as low as 5,000.
Really?
No one watches WWE over here. No one.
Wow.
If they're all going online and torrent, you can't really torrent anything anymore. But there's websites out there where you can,
of course,
get a illicit copy. They're probably watching it off there because that's a premium channel. No one wants to pay for it, especially not just for wrestling that they probably don't like anyway. But AEW, I don't know how they're doing. They're on a stronger station that's on. Basically, everyone can access it. It's like basic cable, I think.
A basic cable, okay.
And they, at one point earlier on, were getting like 120,000 views, stuff like that. How would you say? An audience of 120,000 something.
Yeah.
So wrestling here isn't really that watched, at least in the traditional television sense.
Okay. You think it's like it's going down, wrestling? A lot of people say the same thing that you're saying right now, but I don't know. I've always been a fan and everything, and I always wanted to be there for me for the rest of my life. And if I ever have kids, I'll show them to watch wrestling as well. But you think it's on a downward slope, wrestling now, with this whole cancel culture and everything?
It's not the cancel culture. I mean, for the most part, cancel culture doesn't really. I mean, it does, and it's a huge shame, and I don't like cancel culture at all. I think you should be able to say basically what you want. Freedom of speech, and if you don't like something, then you tune out, not try and murder the other person who was saying it. There's always, extremes and limits to everything, I suppose. But the point I was getting, what was the question? Oh, when wrestling went downhill.
Yes.
For me, it went downhill in '99, and it never really recovered because. And I've said this before once, or twice maybe, is wrestling when Vince Russo left the WWF in October 1999. That's when they started doing the backstage filming vignettes, like promos between people where the camera's clearly there and yet they're ignoring it. So it went from pseudo sport to complete soap opera.
That's a good
point. And
point.
it strains credulity. To the point, just one step too far. And when I was a kid, so in '99, I was 13.
Okay.
I didn't know what it was exactly. But when that change happened, there was something wrong with it. I'll tell you something else as well. When they brought in more writers, so this is also, I'm not a big Vince Russo fan.
Okay.
But at least it was just him, and he was letting the guys come up with their own stuff to a certain extent. Or in cases like Jericho, Steve Austin, The Rock, all of it. And then people like Brian Gewirtz comes in. And they've got a team of writers and they're scripting everyone's verbiage. And then that becomes a problem.
Okay.
It becomes a problem.
We just had Jimmy Jacobs on the show, and he was telling us about how the process works in the back. And they would have almost 25 guys there talking around the table and talking about this and that. And I'm like, 25 guys. And I go, but even if you had the best idea in the world, and if Vince McMahon didn't like it, it's in the garbage.
You're exactly right. And I'll tell you why. Writers aren't necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
But it was Vince McMahon in late 99, all around about the same time, that wanted to. And I'll tell you, this is probably also why, is when SmackDown debuted, it was the FTC, or it was the Parent Television Council, PTC.
Okay.
That went really heavily at SmackDown to try and get it thrown off the air or get it censored. They didn't do it for Raw because it wasn't on network. But the point is that that's when more or less Vince McMahon started really having like an iron grip on what people said and what people did. Therefore, there's less autonomy from the wrestlers. You're just following the script. And just over the years, controls have been tighter and tighter and tighter, to the point it's like you are just now an actor. It's like at some point in the matches when the referees were getting dictated in their ears. It's like, no, now you need to speed up. Now you need to slow down. Take it home early. Do anything they'll say. And that's probably why the wrestlers love AEW more now.
Yes. I think that's spot on.
Yeah, exactly. Because now the control's back in their hands. I'm not an AEW fan either. I've watched 1 minute of it.
Okay.
I can sort of tell. I know you shouldn't say this. Not like it's not a fan, but I
Hey,
knew what it was.
It's your opinion, right?
Yeah, but I knew what it was going to be, and then I watched a minute of it, and I'll tell you what it was.
And you knew exactly what it was exactly. Okay,
Yeah, because I knew the style, and I knew I wouldn't be into it. I should watch, and I will watch it again. I'll watch a full show at some point. I'll probably make a video out of it and try and make some money out of it. But it was DDP was there for one match in like a tag. And I thought, I've got to see DDP. Let's see how he's holding up. But he's moving pretty gingerly. You know, he's 60 odd now, but he's still in good shape. Obviously, he does yoga. And Gold Dust, Dustin Runnels,
Dustin Reynolds.
his Dustin Rhodes, excuse me, does a Canadian Destroyer on the guy with the Burberry scarf. And then
MJF.
MJF, there you go. And I'll mime this for you. He takes a Canadian Destroyer off the second, and then he stands up and goes, oh, God. And he goes... and does that. He does that stupid fake punch drunk thing, and then he gets pinned and it's like, this is shit. Fuck that. And I was just like, I'm done. But I don't watch any wrestling at all. I think that's sort of the ironic thing that I've got a wrestling podcast. I don't watch any wrestling at all. I even watch old stuff anymore. But and I'm not lying when I said the last time I watched a Raw, CM Punk was on it.
Okay.
So I'm so out. That's why everyone I have on is from the 90s. Or the 80s, or the 70s, or a couple of them in the 2000s.
It was pretty cool because since you're talking about the earpieces and that, I remember when you asked Mike Chioda, I never knew they had a mic in their referee shirt. I knew they had earpieces, but to talk to the back, that's pretty like, I don't know. I know it wasn't like that back in the day, but it made more sense because of the injuries and the concussions and that. But do you think that's a good thing that they had that, or
no? I don't.
It's a little weird to me.
I don't know. I mean, it's a weird one, actually. I think it can be a force for good in a certain sense if somebody's injured,
yes,
or if, let's say, TV's running long, or some unforeseen circumstance kicks off where they've got to definitely get a message to the wrestlers. Either you've got to go home in the next 20 seconds, like some news thing is about to come on and cut us off the air. But the fact is, they abuse it and they use it for reasons that they just don't need to be. No. Or maybe these days they do, because a lot of people these days don't even seem to have been trained properly. Like people on TV don't seem to be able to run the ropes properly, or take a corner properly. Or
it's not like it was back in the day too, right? Like you had now you're just bringing in these entertainers now, and they don't even know how to run the ropes. So it's, I don't know.
Well, they all go through training to a point, but I mean, it's like some basics people are missing, and
there has to be something there. I think there's something missing that they have to get back in, like how it was 15, 20 years ago when you had the big guys coming in and they knew how to wrestle, they knew how to entertain, but it wasn't about the entertainment back then, right?
Yeah, well, it was, of course, it was. I mean, but the thing is, the matches weren't. I mean, they were meant to entertain you, but they were meant to get to a point.
Yes.
And the point is either this guy is meant to look strong, or we're getting to the next level in a story somewhere else. And it's basic storytelling. And as far as I can tell, because I'm only getting third-hand or second-hand information, is that Vince McMahon is, as we were saying before, that the entire company, if we're talking about WWE, is at his whim. And if he thinks that nobody's going to remember what happened the week before, then he will just scrap everything and then start from... Just throw out the script and say, yes, you two were feuding last week, but now all of a sudden you're best friends, and you've lent one of them $10,000.
Sorry to interrupt you. Jimmy Jacobs literally said the exact same thing. He goes, "It doesn't matter what happened last week. It's what's mattering this week. And next week, if they're going to be in a tag match, those two guys, it doesn't matter. It's what's going on this week." That's a very good point.
Yeah, I think with wrestling, people overcomplicate wrestling. Wrestling should be the easiest thing in the world.
Yes.
As Kevin Nash once said, and I don't even know what the 7 things were, but he said there's only like 7 things, like 7 storylines that there are. It's like you're fighting over a woman, you're fighting over a championship, you're fighting over money in some way, you're fighting to see who's better. That's 4. I can't really think of any others. And then you have permutations and different directions to go off that. But wrestling and storytelling is universal. And it's the same in TV. It's the same in opera. It's the same even in music. A lot of songs will have a story from beginning to end. Johnny Cash, for example. You know, and I don't know why people overcomplicate with 48,000 writers. I don't know why people overcomplicate it with putting superstars against superstars every single week when there needs to be some something to build to. And I'm not talking like a pay-per-view every month.
Yes.
I'm talking about just a story from beginning, middle, and end that should tease the viewer, but keep them just interested enough that they will stick with it and have a curiosity of how it's going to end. And then and this is what Bill Watts did great, was that when a storyline ended, it never just ended. It always morphed into something else or split up. So like one storyline splits into 2 separate issues afterwards. And it's like, that's basic soap opera storytelling.
That's great
like,
storytelling. That.
Yeah, like a soap opera. I mean, in America, it's completely different. I don't know if Canada's the same way, whereas a soap opera, you have like 7 episodes a week and everything's a cliffhanger to get to the next thing and to the next thing. I mean, that's been going since the 20s in wrestling. Why all of a sudden since, I don't know, pick a year in the last 20 years, that went completely out the window? It makes no sense to me. And that's why I don't watch.
Makes sense. It makes sense. Another thing, I know the Hall of Fame. I'm a big fan of the Hall of Fame. Is there somebody that you think that shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame right now that should be in there? Because like I've had Jacques Rougeau. We're trying to push as hard as we can here in Canada to get him in. Well deserved. Jacques and his brother as well. PCO, the Quebecers. Man, you look at the list of people that are in there already. You got Drew Carey in there. Obviously, Donald Trump is in there, but you don't have legends like that in there. Like, what's your opinion on
I'm
that?
going to throw one at you. If there were a celebrity wing that was worth a shit, give me the 5 people who you'd have in, and I will tell you mine, and you see if you disagree with any.
Okay.
As unpopular as it is, I would say Donald Trump.
Okay.
Because he was part of an integral storyline in what was at that point the biggest selling pay-per-view ever. He turned up WrestleMania 7. He hosted 4 and 5 at Trump Plaza. I think there's a case he could be in. Mr. T, definitely.
Mr.
Muhammad
T
Ali
isn't in there right now.
He probably is.
Okay.
Was he? Yeah. Mr. T is in there.
Okay.
Mr. T. I'm not saying they're not in, but like if it's just 5, Muhammad Ali. Who else? I don't know.
You know what? I'll give you this one. I think it was his birthday this week or last week. Bob Barker.
He was only in one segment. He was a one-hit wonder. I wouldn't like it's someone who actually genuinely brought sold tickets or was a boon to wrestling in some way. The 3 guys that I mentioned definitely were. There's got to be a few more. But, I mean, you can't just say like I really like Ozzy Osbourne. And like how he handled that bulldog for like 5 minutes while trying not to fall over at WrestleMania 2.
Pete Rose, I think Pete Rose is in there too. I think.
Yes. Now I think that's a good one because 3 WrestleManias and then he was in like 1 Raw and that was like a really terribly acted
that little feud with Kane there and
man, I was my favorite wrestler growing up. Love Kane. Love Kane.
Oh yeah, a lot of people tell me that, and I don't like. And not to say that I was a fan of Kane, but I was more of a fan of the Undertaker. But then I'm like, why would you like Kane more than the Undertaker? But I can see why.
I didn't like Undertaker because I loved Kane so much. It's like right, okay. So when I started to get back into wrestling again, so I watched like from '93, and then dropped out a couple of years. '98 had a sleepover at my friend's house. It's like wrestling, right? We're gonna watch wrestling. It's like, okay, what's WCW? I've never heard of it.
Yeah.
And so he was like, oh, here's Sting, and my friend was going, he's going to kick all the NWA's ass right now. And then he didn't. I was like, Sting's shit. And so then we switched to Raw because it was shown on Friday over here, right?
Okay.
But Nitro and Raw still competed. And then we watched Raw, and it was the one where Kane set fire to a man on the stage.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, my like if I was wearing a hat, it would have blown it through the ceiling. I was just like so amazed. I was like, Kane's the greatest man I've ever seen. And I loved Kane. It's me and Filthy Tom Lawler. We're the 2 like biggest fans of Kane in the world. But obviously now it's the British Bulldog because he grew up like what?
Have you ever reached out to his daughter to be on your show?
What's she called?
Georgina or something.
Georgia. Is it Georgia?
Georgia, yeah.
No.
No.
If I didn't know her name, then definitely no. I was actually going to try and reach out to Davey Boy Smith Jr. I thought that would be a good one. But there's so many people I've not written to. I'll go through a period of like writing to maybe like 10. And then like I had one time when like 5 of them wrote back and then all wanted to do it in the same week.
Oh shit.
And I was just like, oh God, so I won't do that anymore. I'll just write to a couple here and a couple there, and just like I've got a huge list of people. So I'm trying to think who else would like really like to have on. Trying to think. I
Or
mean,
maybe like guys like maybe like Vince Russo or Eric Bischoff, maybe, or
no, I won't have Vince Russo. There's a couple of people I won't have on. Vince Russo is. I heard this from Brian Alvarez. I think
okay.
I think it's the best description. Is that Vince Russo might be a good guest, but an interview with Vince Russo is completely useless because
Really?
he won't take any responsibility for any of this unbelievably stupid things he's done over over the last 20
Okay.
years or 25 years or however it's been. So, and me being me, I don't want to turn an interview into an argument, but I can't help myself. So I always pick someone who I think, yeah, I can get on with them. It's like that's why I left it a long time before I asked Dutch Mantel. Not that I didn't think I'd get on with him, but there's certain people that I think, I need to be better at doing this before I really tackle a name that
Of course.
I've got massive respect for, and actually I won't say intimidated, but yeah, I want to do it as much justice as I can.
Yeah, and you want to impress them and give them the best possible platform too, right?
Yeah, I just don't want to puke up or down my top. That's the main goal that I do with my interviews. But no, yeah, there's certain people that I don't know if I'd write to them yet. Still, it took me a long time to write to Jim, and I'm Jim Cornette, and I'm a bit bummed out he's not written back. But who knows? He always
You
took
never
3
know.
weeks to write back.
You never know.
Anyway,
You never
so
know. That'd be cool to get him.
yeah, it'd be great. I'd love him. He's a technophobe as well. He doesn't know how to work anything. In fact, he knows how to work Skype, but he doesn't have like a webcam or anything.
Okay.
So just
Is that because is that the reason why he does? Well, I know on YouTube he does his shtick there, but it's just audio with just a picture as the video there. So
yeah,
so I guess maybe that's the reason, maybe, or
yes, because
he's an old school kind of guy there.
Yeah, and his co-host doesn't want to be filmed, which I know from because I asked. So Jim Cornette wouldn't have a problem with it. The co-host doesn't want to be filmed, so that's why it's audio only.
Is there a reason for that, or is just you don't want to say it, or
maybe he's monstrously ugly for all I know? I've no idea. I've honestly no idea. But no, he told me he didn't want to be filmed. So, but as far as Jim goes, I think anything with a microchip in it, anything that was invented after fire will be an issue for him to work. So, but apart from that, but no, I've got the utmost respect for Jim. I think he is as right as anybody can be on professional wrestling. I mean, if it was Jim now with his mind, but he was in his 20s, because I actually think that's what probably is wrestling is missing a lot of the moments. Like how NXT 2.0 is now got nothing but young guys, apart from maybe like one or two. In theory, that's actually a very good idea.
Of course, they're rebuilding, right? It's like a hockey team or a football team, or that's where my mind is going with that. So I kind of understand where they're going with that.
Yeah, but in theory, it's a very good idea. But in execution, I don't know because I've not seen, but I don't hear great things about it. And it's probably because there's just too many people who are, to use the wrestling term, too green. And you need to have a good mixture of veterans and everything else. But then now they're recruiting kids out of college who are at least 6'4" and 280 pounds. So now all you're going to have is a load of very clumsy, large people who have been shoved on TV after 6 weeks of, not learning how to run the ropes. But if that was done properly, I think that'd be the best idea for NXT. The only other thing with NXT is that it shouldn't be on national TV. That's not the point of what it
they
is.
were on the WWE network before
Exactly.
this whole Monday Night Wars, the whole Wednesday Night Wars happened with AEW. I think they should have just stayed there. It would have been a lot better. And they were, I don't know. It's just a bit weird that a lot of people say that there is no war. But I think
of course it was a war. Of course it was a war. The entire point it was put on the thing. The entire point it was put on TV was to take viewers away from AEW.
Yeah, of course.
There's no other reason.
Of course.
And then as soon as and thankfully WWE to save face had an out because hockey was supposed to be coming onto USA.
Yes.
And then it didn't. But by then they'd already committed to move to Tuesday, and then they stayed. But it shouldn't be on TV. It shouldn't be on TV. It's
No.
like you have a televised circus, and then you televise basically the beginners.
Yeah.
You know, the beginners thing on prime time television on Tuesdays at 9 or 10 o'clock at PM, whenever it's on in America.
You think that at my age or when I was younger, there was no internet, there was no Twitter, there was no nothing. I remember going into school and running to school because after Raw would end, when I was a kid, I wasn't allowed to go on the phone. You had to go to bed, then I had to go to school the next day. But I ran to school to talk to my 15, 20 friends that loved wrestling, and we used to talk about it. Nowadays, I think Twitter. Well, the question I want to ask is: do you think Twitter is ruining wrestling a little bit, or social media is ruining wrestling?
I think the wrestlers are ruining it for themselves on Twitter. It's as simple as that. Because I mean, Twitter doesn't ruin anything. It's the people who ruin it for whatever you think Twitter's ruining it for. But no, it's just like, where's the mystery? Where's the mystery in these people? It's like I saw a photo with Bray Wyatt, and he was doing like a kissy face thing with Stephanie McMahon, and I was like, how does that benefit you? We all know it's bullshit. We all know it's fake.
Yes, exactly.
No one goes to Die Hard, right? And every 4 minutes, Bruce Willis turns around. He's got a gun. He's covered in sweat. He's about to get Hans Blick or whatever. But then he turns around to the camera and goes, "This is all bullshit." And it's the same with anything else. It's like I brought up the Breaking Bad of the Sopranos. We all know it's bullshit. We all know they're actors. We all know that they've practiced and they know it. But you get lost in the story.
Mm-hmm.
And wrestling is, and when people say wrestling's like acting or wrestling's like this, that, the other, wrestling is unique. It is like nothing else. It's got elements of other business. Stand-up comedy. It's probably more like stand-up comedy than anything else because you have to improvise.
Exactly.
Or at least you did. But there's sports, there's professional philandering, there's trucker because you've got to drive from every town. It's a mixture of there's a mixture of rock and roll. It's everything. And it's a unique business. And I don't know why, I think it would behoove all wrestling companies to say, right, guys, if you just so have to be on Twitter, don't say it's fake. Don't say, you can sort of hint.
We already know that already. Exactly.
Exactly. But the point is, I mean, you don't have to just say, hey, oh no, that move that you thought really hurt me, it was all fake. I was just pretending. It's like we can assume you were just pretending, but you just never know. I just don't know why people just don't have pride in themselves and their characters.
It's weird.
But they should do. But they should, if I was a wrestler, I'd not built to be a wrestler, but and I never wanted to be. And but if I was, and especially if I was a character, I would not constantly, let's say I wore face paint, I'd constantly not have photos of myself without face paint. I'd constantly not, with whoever I'm having a high profile feud with, I would not buddy up to them in a photo and say, hey, we're in Mallorca together. Yeah. Just little weird.
So you think that's why Undertaker was so successful in his career?
Of course he was. Yeah. He only came out when the
last couple of years, I think, right? He's been Mark Calloway, right? He hasn't been the Undertaker walking around with the hat and the black clothes and stuff. So yeah, I could see where you're going with that.
And you know what, right? If he came back now, you'd still love it as an Undertaker fan that you are. Yeah. You would still love it.
Of course.
But now you've probably seen that WWE Network 6-part documentary where you know how much anxiety he goes through with every
There
match.
it is. Exactly. That's the
kicker. And then let's say you 100% loved Undertaker for the Undertaker.
Yeah.
Now you're loving him 90%, but then there's that 10% of Mark Calloway that you know what he sounds like when he's not in character. You know his feelings to a point.
You won't be emotionally involved in his story and in his the road to wherever he wants to go. And I understand. Okay, that's a very good point.
And also I'll harp on this, and then I'll I'll let you get a word in edgeways. Oh damn it, I've already forgotten it. No, it doesn't matter. I can't remember. Oh, what is it? No, it was a good point, but I can't remember it. But yeah.
One segment I love from your show is the firing line. So I don't know if anyone's ever done it to you, but let me do it to you. I'll throw out a couple of names. If you have a story, or if you just have
probably
a one-liner, it's I more or less put guys that have been on your show before, so you could tell me a little insight on that. So Dave Meltzer.
Right, I think Dave's great. He's the greatest living historian of professional wrestling. it's cut and dry. No one comes close. Not even Jim Cornette.
Wow.
And you know, he's a great wealth of knowledge. I don't like the 5-star rating system.
Okay.
I think it's completely pointless because now wrestlers today are aiming for a good rating
Yeah.
when what you should be doing is aiming to draw money and accomplish, like with your small amount of television time, you should be aiming to accomplish what you've been asked to accomplish. And
That's true.
that to me would be a 5-star segment, whether it's an interview or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also, I can't agree with him on modern wrestling because he does shit on people
Yeah.
who say they're staying in the past.
Yeah.
It's like I stay in the past where it was fun and it was like way more successful. And kids in school used to watch it. And now the average age is 56 who watch
That's
Raw.
good. I like
So-
that. I like that. We talked about him before, but Eric Bischoff.
I'd love to interview him, except he's got a worse memory than me. So he probably doesn't get enough credit, I don't think. I think a lot of people just say, oh, well, he only had one good idea that he stole from Japan with the NWO. But it's not true.
No.
He had to deal with a lot of egos. He went out and got a lot of people. Yeah, fine. He had a lot of money to spend. But you know what? For those first few years before it got out of control I don't know, probably got out of control Starrcade 97.
Yeah.
And
It was great
you know,
TV, though.
I didn't get it. I didn't get the whole Sting doesn't get pinned and then he does get pinned. I'll tell you what, right? And this is actually something else I've heard before, and it's true. WCW went down. The first thing where it just wasn't going to work was where Lex Luger won the title mid-1997, like August maybe, from Hogan. And then he lost it the next week.
Oh, wow.
It was the right time for him to be champion. He should have been champion for like a month or two. And then he wasn't. And that's so smacked of, there's too many people pulling the strings here. There's too many people with their own self-interest. But for Eric Bischoff, I think he's maybe a bit underappreciated, especially as a TV performer. He's underappreciated.
That's for sure. That's
Yeah.
for sure. 100%. The Godfather.
He was great. I liked beforehand. I don't know if it was on the thing or beforehand. And he says, I don't like to trash people. It's like, it's absolutely fine. I don't ask questions where I'm like trying to make people uncomfortable.
Of course.
And then I did the firing line. And then he said, Sonny, he's just piece of shit.
I saw
was like,
that.
Yes. And I was like, fuck. And he's like Hulk Hogan beforehand. I asked him earlier. And he said, he could have been nicer to me, but I just, let sleeping dogs lie. And if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. Sonny, piece of fucking shit. Hated it. I was like, brilliant. But I didn't press. I should have. That's my big regret, is I didn't press to say, was it anything in particular to you, or was it just her?
Okay.
And, but yeah, that was great.
Vince McMahon.
A madman. He is a madman. And,
yeah, that's for sure.
He
You know what? Ironically, I have the same birthday as him, August 24th.
Oh God! So you like don't celebrate then?
Yes and no.
It evens out.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, he's a madman, and in times that can be fantastic. Do you know what? He's a ruthless man as well, as far as I can see.
Would you want him in your corner if it came down to it?
I bet me in my corner in what? Like in a fight?
No, like in wrestling business. As ruthless as he is.
Now,
as a multi-billionaire. No, okay.
I think Tony Khan's the opposite. I think he's not ruthless enough. I mean, look at the roster. He's got like 130 people, and I'm not even really being facetious. I think he's got like 100. He's got over 90 blokes, men on it. He's got like 25 women on the roster. He's not ruthless enough. He should be chopping some of these guys out. I know he wants to pay everyone and wants to be the nice guy and everything.
Yeah.
Vince McMahon is the other side, but the fact is that I think he shouldn't be on wrestling anymore, because he's doing wrestling to entertain himself and nobody else. And he's just got too many quirks and foibles and weird just beliefs in wrestling that's holding WWE back, I think, which is a shame, because obviously he's also the world's greatest wrestling promoter.
Yeah. What's he talking about? Tony Khan? We'll talk about Tony Khan now.
Tony Khan. I think he's too nice. I genuinely think he's too nice. And I think also he's the polar opposite of Vince, in the sense that he's also doing wrestling that he likes. And And I will say this, I did see 5 seconds of AEW, right? And in that 5 seconds, someone did a second rope moonsault to the floor on another guy and then landed on his feet and went, I said, well, that looked easy. And I bet that didn't finish the match, did it?
No.
It was spectacular, but I bet it meant nothing.
Yeah.
So I think for me, as yes, I'm fine. I've not watched that much, but I can more. You tell me if I'm wrong. It's indie wrestling with international production values, and I'm not a fan of it. But I also think he's probably a very nice person, and I think he's got the best interests of every employee under him at heart. And I genuinely think he cares about people, and he's a good person.
You think
But similarly, I think he's not ruthless enough.
You think that's going to burn him in a sense that he's signed so many people that eventually he's going to have to let go some people, and maybe they're going to just,
Well, why should? Yeah, I get that. Like when late 2019, WWE and AEW, they're both trying to sign everybody they could to stop the other person from signing with them.
Of course,
WWE learned quite a few months ago that the war, so-called war in quotation marks, is dead.
Yeah,
and they cut a load of people that they didn't see a future in. Some may say it's heartless and ruthless, but the fact is that it's probably the right thing to do if they weren't going to use them properly. And they're spending, and yes, they're a billionaire company, and they've made more money than they're ever making before with all the rights fees and Saudi Arabia and everything. But the fact is that it's also not a charity. And Tony Khan's running AEW more like a charity. I mean, you just shouldn't have that many people on a roster that's got 3 hours of first-run television. For 3 hours of first-run television, you could get away with 35 people.
Yeah,
I know that sounds like a low amount, but you really could. Same with UFC. I'm a big UFC fan.
Okay.
They've got like 600 fighters or something under contract. How many of them do you know? Are you a UFC
maybe
fan?
Maybe a handful. Yeah, I watch it here and there, but maybe a handful of guys like the Conor McGregors and the Usmans and the Izzy and that. But it's you're right, Jerry. That's right.
There was a theory of the narrower the spotlight, the more concentrated the light is. So the more what I'm saying is that with a bigger roster, you need a bigger spotlight, and then the less dense the light is, and the less focused it is. And with AEW, you've got well over 100 people. And you could really get away with 35. I mean, in the old territory days, some territories ran with like 12 people on the roster, and they worked 7 days a week. And they had they had 1 hour, but they had 1 hour show every week, in the studio as well. And they knew how to pad the time out. They knew how to make stars out of people because they had to. And if they didn't, guess what? They failed and they folded.
RVD.
Never spoken to him. I like that he's going out with a couple of porn stars. That's pretty cool.
I'm a follower on his social media, that's for sure.
Dude, I don't follow anyone on anything. I'm not a social media person. You can see how many Twitter followers for how little I care about social media. But I did look at Rob Van Dam's, and it was quite eye-opening. And I looked at Virgil's, and I was like, "Fucking hell, Virgil, off." And that was it. I was done. And but no, I'd like to speak to him. But other than that, it's a shame his WWE title run didn't last longer.
Yeah. So this last one here is a two-parter. Since I'm a big Canadian wrestling fan.
Is it Jacques Rougeau and PCO by any chance?
No.
Oh,
Bret Hart, and the part 2 of that is, do you think the Montreal Screwjob was a work?
Montreal Screwjob was not a work. 2, Bret Hart is the best wrestler. Is he the best wrestler ever?
I'd put him up there with some of the. I'd put him up there. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's the whole deal with Bret and Shawn. Bret's better, and that's
100%.
I won't hear anything about that because Shawn. Bret makes things look like a fight, and guess what? Professional wrestling is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a simulated fight. Shawn Michaels was amazing. He was too crisp, but similarly, I like that he did the high flying stuff. Nothing ridiculous, but he did high flying stuff as a heavyweight. I like that. But, he was a good. Was he a good champion?
A lot of people say he wasn't, though, which is, I don't know. I kind of agree in somewhat because I don't know. A lot of people say like even now, like he's bitter, but I don't know. I think he's allowed to be bitter. That's my opinion.
You're saying about Bret?
Yeah.
Bret was an amazing champion.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was an amazing champion. And do you know, right, when people say Brett takes the business too seriously, it's like, no, you don't take the business too seriously.
There you go. That's
more people should
yeah.
take the business as seriously as Brett does, and then maybe the wrestling would not be getting 5,000 views on Raw, you know, for first run in this country at least. That's why Raw, and people constantly make excuses. This is another Dave Meltzer thing, where he will bend over backwards to excuse AEW's poor ratings, which he does.
Yeah.
And then he will shit on Raw's poor ratings. It's like, no, neither company is giving the fans at large what they're after. And it's just, I bet you know more former wrestling fans or lapsed wrestling fans than you know current wrestling fans.
That's 110%. Like I said, all the guys I used to hang around with in high school, and I had the mock federation there, they don't watch wrestling at all. At all. They don't talk about it, and they don't want to know nothing. Like, that was just that era where it was so exciting to be a fan that now it's like it's a little too much to get back into it, kind of thing. And I do understand that, but it is what it is. But
yeah, but I mean, okay, right. So this is actually maybe a more pertinent question: is how many of those wrestling fans who don't watch anymore would watch again if it got good?
That's a good question. I you know what? It's like I find it's like a soap opera. I find sometimes it's, if you don't watch for a while, you could get back into it a lot easier than it was. But I don't know. I think a lot of people would. I think a lot of people would. Like, if The Rock would come back, let's say, I think people would come back and jump on the bandwagon again. But how long is he going to stick around for? You know, that's because people know wrestling because of The Rock, because of Stone Cold, all those guys. But now nobody knows who Roman Reigns is or Seth Rollins is. It sucks to say, but you know what I'm trying to say. But I don't know. It's a little bit weird.
There's only a few, and wrestling fans won't believe this. There's only a few wrestlers that are actual household names. John Cena is not one of it. Maybe a little bit to like film fans.
Yeah.
There's only a few. Hulk Hogan.
100%.
The Rock.
Yeah.
Not Ric Flair, because most people don't know who Ric Flair is.
They'll
know the Woo more than who Ric Flair is. And then in this country, Big Daddy, of a certain age, everybody knows Big Daddy and Giant Haystacks. I'm trying to think who else. I mean, and the Bushwhackers. Everyone seems to know the Bushwhackers.
Macho Man too, maybe? I'm thinking of that era there where there was like they were like more or less the three pillars there back in the day. Macho Man, Ultimate Warrior, Hulk Hogan.
See, I wouldn't even know Ultimate Warrior. Like, so the true like litmus test would be a picture, and you put in front of 100 people. If more than 50% of them, or 50 of them out of 100 say it's this, then they're in the mainstream consciousness. I think, I don't even think Savage would be.
No,
I think Hogan. I don't even think Austin would be. I think Hogan, The Rock. I don't even know John Cena.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Well, with that said, before we cut it loose over here, you want to tell everybody out there where they could find you on social media, on YouTube? The floor is yours, my friend.
Social media, I'm not bothered by. Don't worry about it. I have a YouTube channel called WSI, and then it's got this line, this like vertical line that I don't know what the thing's called. WSI, vertical line, wrestling shoots interviews. The reason I called it that was because I thought it was the most easily Googleable name. The only problem with it is that, sorry about this, I'm going to have to say this, is that the word shoot has got negative connotations to certain people. So at some point, it might just be WSI in the future, or James Line WSI. And the reason I didn't put my name in it at all is because I don't want people knowing who I am, because it's not about me. And I've got like no ego about this. I would have a cardboard. I would have a cardboard cutout of me, like, or just like at the back end of it. So it's just like a brown silhouette. I don't like being on camera, which sounds weird, but because I am. But the thing is, I have to be. But anyway, what am I? Oh yeah, and I've got 2 books out. Hang on, actually save these. So one, Owen Hart, King of Pranks, out now on Amazon.com and .co.uk and .ca. And similar, actually, this is my not for resale version author copy of The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. And this one is full of all of Owen's pranks, over 160 examples, and also a complete biography of the man as well, which I didn't actually intend to write. And then it just sort of got longer and longer. And then, it's a total biography. And this one is just a straight biography of The Rock, and it's doing quite well. And at one point, it was out selling John Moxley's book.
Really?
Yeah, I took a screen grab. Yeah, I looked at
Wow.
it an hour later, and then like we'd switch places again. But I was like, yeah, fuck you, John. But
That's so
yeah,
great. Well, honestly, I've learned a lot here today with you, and I really appreciate your time. And I hope all the Jofo Mafia members out there get to support James in his journey here. And maybe one day we could get Jeremy Prophet on the show. We'll talk about that one day. But like I said, support James as well on his YouTube channel and then whatever he does. James, I want to thank you very much for being a guest on Jofo In The Ring. Hopefully we could do this again one day. And good luck with your channel and everything. And you know that you have a fan in me for forever.
Thank you very much. And I've got bad news for everybody who actually does watch my WSI thing. Is I'm starting a Patreon next year. Starting a Patreon.
Nice,
because
nice.
This is so expensive to run, and I don't make enough out of YouTube.
That I know.
So if it's going to be full time, I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to have to start charging for the full interviews. So if
Good,
you're wondering
good,
why
good.
I've not posted a full interview in 6 weeks, you'll see him eventually if you're willing to stump up the money. But
that's
sorry,
a
guys.
good strategy. It's you know, you don't have to say sorry. Business is business. It is what it is. Nothing's free in life. So
Conrad does it.
What it is.
Loads of people do it, and
Yep.
tell you what, 100 or 200 subscribers would mean the difference between me doing this
Yeah,
full
that's
time
for sure.
and me
For sure.
giving up. It's the difference.
Exactly. So yeah, so whenever that happens, let us know. We'll help you out with that, and we'll push the envelope as much as we can to help you get your Patreons as high as your YouTube channel as well. So
That will be hugely appreciated. Don't worry about social media though. Anything that pays me is I will plug to death.
Perfect. James, have a good day. Thank you very much. We'll keep in touch, and appreciate everything you've done for me today. Thank you very much.
Cheers, guys. Cheers, everyone.
Have a good night.
So, Jofo, I'm going to gargle a shot for Kurt Hennig and everybody before we go.
Oh, no.
Jofo, thank you guys.